Anthropic has released Claude's latest model as well as a new way of interacting with it called artifacts. Welcome back to the AI Daily Brief. Today we have one of my favorite types of stories, which is when a very cool new tool gets released and people get all excited to go try it out. Of course, this tool coming from one of the biggest labs in the space, Anthropic, and it beating out GPT-4o on a number of different metrics means even more excitement. First, let's talk about what was actually released. It is called Claude 3.5 Sonnet. Anthropic writes, we're launching Claude 3.5 Sonnet, our first release in the forthcoming Claude 3.5 model family. So basically, this is an update to their mid-tier model Sonnet, which was previously behind their top-tier model Opus. Claude 3.5 Sonnet is more intelligent based on benchmark scores, but also still costs less in terms of price per million tokens. The 200K token context window has remained the same, but the benchmarks appear very impressive. A highlight, for example, that they call out, in an internal agentic coding evaluation, Claude 3.5 Sonnet solved 64% of problems, outperforming Claude 3 Opus, which solved 38%. On graduate level reasoning, 3.5 Sonnet scored a 59.4% compared to GPT-4o's 53.6%. On the MMLU, its 5-shot score of 88.7% was the same as GPT-4o's 0-shot score. The Claude 0-shot score was just a little bit behind at 88.3%. And so on and so forth. You get the idea. Basically, on most of these tests, with the exception of one particular math benchmark, Claude 3.5 Sonnet was outperforming not only Claude 3 Opus, but GPT-4o as well. Anthropic also calls out Claude for having state-of-the-art vision. They write, Claude 3.5 Sonnet is our strongest vision model yet, surpassing Claude 3 Opus on standard vision benchmarks. These step change improvements are most notable for tasks that require visual reasoning, like interpreting charts and graphs. Claude 3.5 Sonnet can also accurately transcribe text from imperfect images, a core capability for retail, logistics, and financial services. Another interesting note on the safety side of things is they say that they provided Claude 3.5 Sonnet to the UK's Artificial Intelligence Safety Institute for pre-deployment safety evaluation. So basically, the model testing wasn't just internal. Okay, so basically part one of this is that we have a model upgrade. The Verge writes, Claude 3.5 Sonnet is apparently Anthropic's smartest, fastest, and most personable model yet. The Verge sums up, for now the model is the big news, and the pace of improvement here is wild to watch. Anthropic launched Claude 3 Opus in March, proudly saying it was as good as GPT-4 and Gemini 1.0, before OpenAI and Google released better versions of their models. Now Anthropic has made its next move, and it surely won't be long before its competition does so too. Claude doesn't get talked about as much as Gemini or ChatGPT, but it's very much in the race. Another reason for it to remain in the race is that this model update also comes with a pretty meaningful interface update. Mike Krieger, the company's chief product officer, who was previously the co-founder of Instagram, wrote, we're also launching a preview of artifacts on Claude.ai. You can ask Claude to generate docs, code, mermaid diagrams, vector graphics, or even simple games. Artifacts appear next to your chat, letting you see, iterate, and build on your creations in real time. I've used it to work on writing, coding, and diagram projects. Yesterday for Super Intelligent, I did a tutorial about 4 early use cases for Claude and artifacts. The first was writing an SOP document for a remote tech company. If you're watching this, you can see that what an artifact represents is basically a right side of the chatbot that's all about previewing the output of your instructions, which are going on the left side. This is in many ways primarily a user experience update. By separating the section where you are providing instructions and interacting with the chatbot from the output, is arguably just a better way to set up the interface. For example, after I got that SOP document, I asked it to add a tongue-in-cheek section about taking advantage of the fun parts of work from home, including dress code and family time, which it did as a second document preview that I could see alongside the first version. A couple other use cases I shared. I did a screenshot of growth statistics from our Super Intelligent YouTube channel that I got from Social Blade and asked Claude to turn it into a line chart, which it dutifully did. I had it write the copy and the code for an AI consultancy to help small businesses. One interesting note here is after I got the first version, I asked it to update the name to Mighty AI Consulting and explained that I wanted the name to reference the idea of these businesses as small but mighty, which it then took as a prompt to update the tagline, not just the name as well. If you've spent any time on Twitter or X since Claude 3.5 came out, you might have seen people coding up complete games. Ali Miller, for example, provided a screenshot of the instructions for the classic game Mancala and asked Claude 3.5 to read the instructions, code the game, and then preview it so she could test and play. It was able to successfully do this in a matter of seconds. There are literally dozens of examples as well of this type of game popping up as an example of what Claude 3.5 Sonnet can do. Outside of the capacities, people took note of the speed. Perplexity writes Claude 3.5 Sonnet is now available on Perplexity, With 2x faster speed than Opus, Claude 3.5 Sonnet unlocks new possibilities for complex AI applications across reasoning, knowledge, and coding tasks. Dan Schipper, who just put out a new product called Spiral, writes, "The really fun thing about building Spiral is the product just got way better and cheaper to run, and we did nothing. Anthropic just dropped a new model that's smarter and lower cost. All we have to do is change one line of code to take advantage. Pretty crazy world." While a lot of the focus was on the artifacts interface, some like Maratka and Koilen also tested it for its reasoning capabilities and found it much improved as well. So what about any critiques or skepticisms? One thing I did see a little bit from the safety crowd was summed up by Mikhail Seyman, who wrote, "As a reminder, Dario, the CEO of Anthropic, told multiple people Anthropic won't release models that push the frontier of AI capabilities." He then shared a couple of screenshots, seemingly referencing that point. Given that Claude 3.5 Sonnet does seem to be ahead of GPT-4o, is this a betrayal of that? The take that I've seen most often in response to this is that while 3.5 Sonnet might be slightly better across a number of different dimensions, it's not some phase shift revolutionary jump up, and so the spirit of what Dario is saying is not necessarily undermined by releasing a slightly more advanced model than the state of the art. Also, the information about him telling people that they won't release models that push the frontier is all secondhand, so it may not even be really true. Wired continued their pattern of getting more and more negative about AI, with a piece titled, "We're still waiting for the next big leap in AI." Anthropic's latest Claude AI model pulls ahead of rivals from OpenAI and Google, but advances in machine learning have lately been more incremental than revolutionary. This is functionally true. It's exactly the argument that I was just giving about Dario saying that they wouldn't push the state of the art. At the same time, I think this sort of critique from media rings a little hollow to me. One, because as I said, I think Wired is now in a category of publications that is just looking for things to not like about artificial intelligence. And second, I think that it inherently fails to recognize how much additional value in terms of productivity, time saved, new opportunities, even quote unquote incremental advances really represent. One of my bully pulpits here on this show is the idea that functionally the way that AI is impacting the world right now is not that we wake up and entire categories of jobs are gone, but that people are winning back their lives 20 minutes at a time. Ultimately, I think the big advance here, even though the updated model is great, is really the artifacts interface. Professor Ethan Malik writes, "The thing Anthropic is nailing is making their systems fun to use. ChatGPT has a lot of key features Claude is missing: web access, full code interpreter, voice, GPTs, but it requires some trial and error to figure out since it isn't obvious. Even Gemini feels more complicated." For us, the consumers, it's basically nothing but upside. So if you haven't tried it out yet, go check out the latest Claude. It's available right now at Claude.ai. And if you create anything really cool, please tag me on Twitter/X so we can see what you did. Like I said, we're dropping a new tutorial about this on Superintelligent today, so if you are a member, you will get access to that. All right, guys, thanks as always for listening or watching the show. And until next time, peace.